Be sure to watch my TED Talk on londonreal.tv. Okay, let's do this. This is Silicon Reel, the video podcast dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. I am Brian Rose. I also host London Reel, which is a similar three-person format. We've got guests like Bruce Perry from the BBC series Tribe. We had former MI5 agent turned whistleblower Annie Michon on last week. You were here for that.
Yeah,
She's pretty cool. She just went and saw Julian Assange after she was here.
So I'm going to see J.A.
She said that?
Like,
she said Julian.
Yeah, Julian, first name basis with her.
It was crazy because I asked her about Julian on the show, and then she's like, "Where are you going next?" She's like, "I'm going to the embassy." "What embassy?" "The Ecuadorian embassy." And I was like, "All right, whoa." Now I get it. So
Whistleblower coffee talk over at the Ecuadorian.
yeah, whistleblowers hanging out. So we've had her on. We had Tim Ferriss in here. So check that out. But this is Silicon Reel. My co-host is entrepreneur Colin Pyle, who comes to London from Toronto. You would have also seen him on television, riding his motorcycle across China. The India ride's coming soon. Soon? Yeah.
Q1 2014, Travel Channel.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to that. This podcast was your brainchild many months ago. This is episode 16. 17. Gosh, crazy. We've been picked up for our second season.
Yeah, third season's negotiations.
Yeah, negotiations right now with the YouTube people. So that's very exciting. Our guest today is Ms. Roxanne Varza, who holds the title of Startup Lover. That's pretty
I made
cool.
that up, actually.
Is that on your business card?
No, it says startup lead on my business card.
Oh, okay. You probably like scratch it out and put lover. That's a cool title. You work for Microsoft in Paris.
Yeah.
More specifically, you work for the Bizspark division. Is that right?
I work, actually, it's a different division. It's called DPE.
Okay.
Stands for Developer of Platform and Ecosystem. I always get that wrong.
Okay.
And my title, generally what I do is I work with startups. So it includes Bizspark. Now it includes actually Microsoft Ventures, which is a new initiative that we've launched in our accelerator program. So everything that has to do with startups. So I thought Startup Lover is a really clean and simple way to get that message across.
Okay, wow. And for people that don't know what Bizspark is, I believe it's a division which provides like free software support and visibility to help startups succeed. Is that
Pretty
about
much,
right?
it's a program. So it's a
Okay.
program for startups that are under the age of 5 years old, making less than 1 million in annual revenue, not a problem for most startups, and developing a tech product. And we give them tons of different support, whether that be software, cloud hosting and things like that. And we also have different ways that we help them get visibility and free support and training.
Okay, very cool. I just want to finish up with you. You were also the co-founder of Girls in Tech, both the London and Paris branch. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah.
You were recently named one of the top 30 women under 30 in tech.
Now you know my age.
I guess we do now. I was about to say, are you still qualified? And you're the editor of TechCrunch France. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's quite a resume. Roxanne, welcome to Silicon Reel.
Thank you.
You know, you're one of these people I'm meeting in tech that has like on her Twitter description has like 6 things that she's co-founded or been involved in. And I always get really intimidated. Like, what am I been doing with my spare time with these people? So is that a tech thing or what?
That is a tech thing. We just got to like fit them all in the Twitter bio.
And it's tricky because I'm like clicking between the Twitter things. And one of them
Checking out different profiles.
Yeah, one's en français, and I'm like, oh, you can't do this. And
Google Translate.
Yeah. You know, we started this show because we wanted to kind of like showcase what's going on here in London in the tech startup industry. We're right on the Roundabout, and we didn't think there was a good voice to like talk to the people because we do think it's really about the people ultimately. But, you live in Paris, you work in Paris. I don't know anything about the tech startup scene in Paris. We're always talking about Silicon Alley and Silicon Valley, and we're not talking about whatever the equivalent is where you are. So I wonder if we could just start up and if you could tell us what is going on in tech startup scene in Paris.
Sure.
And what's it called?
What is it called? So actually the French government has an equivalent initiative of Tech City, which has been kind of loosely called the Quartier Numérique, which means the digital district. And they've made a special name for it, which is Paris Capitale Numérique. But this is most likely going to change and become something that foreigners can hopefully understand.
I was like, I'm going to have to re-listen to that.
And say. But actually,
have silicon in it?
I hope it will have some tech, tech Paris is good for me.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see what the government comes up with. They're always kind of good at Frenchifying it. But one thing that I've always been kind of, I guess, criticized for, and also what people like, is that I'm really positive on everything that's been happening in France. And I think that's something rare. People, for some reason, they don't, whether they be entrepreneurs that are outside of France or even inside of France, there's like a certain level of French bashing that goes on. I have actually been super impressed by everything that I've always discovered about the French ecosystem. I got there in 2009 from San Francisco. There was, I think at the time, the first startup weekend event happening at the end of the year. And it was like you felt like almost nothing was going on. And 2010, new funds were being launched, tons of new startups. It just became really trendy to be an entrepreneur. And since then, I've seen the quality of tech and startups, and they're getting that you need to be international from day one. It's completely blowing my mind. So I'm very positive on what's happening there.
Okay, but there has been a lag.
Compared to what?
I don't know, London, which has probably lagged, New York, which has lagged the Valley, right? I mean, there was no Silicon Alley really 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
And I think it's natural too, because, it's just a younger scene. So people are always also comparing, France doesn't have as many investors, but sorry, VC didn't arrive in France at the same time. So, and it's a different market as well.
And Simon Cook was on a few weeks ago talking about the tax benefits in France that are actually better than the UK now.
Yeah, there are a couple.
Could you
the one that I think people like to throw around the most is the Crédit Impôt Recherche, which is a research tax credit. France has been really good at supporting research. I think what you get as a result is a lot of companies will kind of orient their activity to get that tax benefit. So you actually have people kind of creating products that will be able to benefit from that incentive. But there are also incentives for companies that are under 8 years of age, the Jeune Entreprise Innovante. They get huge tax benefits for, I think, the number of years has been reduced, but it's for any company that's less than 8 years in age. And then there's also tons of public funding that's available to companies as well. Ozeo, for a long time, was a para-public bank that just about every single company you met was like, oh yeah, we've got at least 20,000 euros from Ozeo. So, you have tons of initiatives like this that I don't know what the equivalents are in the US.
Okay, if they do exist.
If they do, yeah.
And what about Microsoft? I mean, we know Microsoft, it's a huge company, but you're obviously trying to lead the way that they're trying to liaise with startups, or the way they're trying to help startups. Like, well, what's your typical day like, week like, or what's going on?
So the project that I've been the most involved in since I joined is our new accelerator space, which is now part of the Microsoft Accelerator Network. In France, the space is known as Spark.
Okay, physical space.
It's a physical space.
Okay.
It's 300 square meters. We're helping companies build prototypes, and we're actually pretty flexible in terms of which products they use. But a lot of the companies that come to us want to build products on Azure, so we have a lot of them using our cloud, and they're building all kinds of different apps. We're helping them for a 3-month period, not taking any equity, not making an investment, but we're providing really cheap space. It's 149 euros per desk per month, so that's about half the price of another desk somewhere else. And they're getting all types of free support and mentoring. So we have some terrific entrepreneurs that have founded, big companies like Allocine, 24 Hour, I think is the French pronunciation, 24 Heures. And, we have people coming and investing time at least every single week helping a company of their choice. And then we have tons of technical mentors that are coming as well to help these people build products, whether they be from Microsoft or from our additional partners, which are Bouygues Telecom and Intel as well.
Okay.
Do you apply to get into that program? Or?
Yeah. We had over 100 applications, and we're picking something like 10 teams.
Okay,
so pretty intense, yeah.
And you said Microsoft, so they do this. I know they do it in London, Paris. How many other sort of cities?
Spaces like this?
Yeah.
So London, actually, I think they just announced that they're opening. Germany will be coming soon. We already have Israel, the US, China, and India, and Brazil and Russia should also be on the map.
Okay. So
yeah, it should be 10 countries by the end of the year.
Very cool.
We ask everyone in here, whether they be VC people or startups, like just basic questions about their business. And what we usually ask is like, what have you done? What are you going to do? And why are you going to win is what we usually ask. And I think it still applies for you. I mean, everyone, a lot of people are starting up incubators, whether it's Accenture trying to do FinTech Innovation Lab. We've had Telefónica's Wayra in here. You guys are doing stuff. What makes it different as far as your efforts, Microsoft efforts?
I think actually it's really funny your question. It's like what's your win? I think we're actually part of the ecosystem, and a win, obviously, a Microsoft objective in this space is getting people using our tech. And the companies that are coming to us are interested in using our tech, and we're making it easier for them to get on our tech. So it's a win. That's a win for Microsoft. But in the big scheme of things, actually, we're hoping to kind of play a really early stage role for those companies. There's not a lot of early stage support in France. There's not a ton of super early stage seed funding or even business angels, a lot less active than in other countries. So we're making essentially that period more, whatever you want to call it, easier for startups to build that prototype and then go on to a bigger accelerator and get the better support. So we're hoping to also play that role in the ecosystem as well. I don't think we're necessarily competing with anyone, and since we're not taking equity, we're not looking to, or at this stage not taking equity, we're not looking for a huge success or anything like that necessarily, but obviously we want them to be successful.
Do you have other people doing the same thing in Paris? Is Wayra in Paris? I don't even know.
Wayra's not in Paris yet, no.
Interesting.
No.
Okay. I mean, are there other big corporates or people in the technology space?
All the corporates are looking to open these types of spaces. I'm aware of a couple that I don't think they've gone public yet, but we're working with, for example, Intel and Bouygues for our space. There's Le Camping, which is actually a public space that has done really, really well. And there's also some new accelerators that are kind of built around the Y Combinator model, so not actually having space, but having, mentorship for equity or whatever you want to call it. And I think the one that got the most attention is called The Family, and they just got funded by Index. So there's some pretty cool things happening there in terms of accelerators.
Are the entrepreneurs, do you find, mostly from France or sort of the Paris region, or are they quite, because in London it's everyone from everywhere, right?
I think when you compare like Paris to Berlin or to London, it is still a lot more French.
Okay.
And even though everybody can speak English and everybody will speak English, you have a couple odd people that come from different countries or students that want to stay around and build companies. But I think a huge majority, which is not something you see here, come from France.
You went to school in Los Angeles. You come to London a lot. What would be different if I got on the Eurostar and went into Paris and saw the technology scene? Like, what feels different in Paris than, say, like London or even Berlin, like you were saying? Like, how would you describe it to someone?
It's, I can't really say that there's a huge difference. I feel like I should come up with something.
The three beards, maybe the three beards. They're more pointy.
Someone told me, like in Berlin, they still work like a regimented, like German work hour week, and they're more prone to certain things. And I just wonder what the
I don't
vibe
know
was.
Berlin as well, but I actually have felt that entrepreneurs everywhere there's like an entrepreneur culture that everybody has everywhere. One thing I like about Europe in general, which I hope my American friends that have companies won't hate me for this, but I feel like the motivations are very different. Like, people here they know it's harder, especially in France. I think there are potentially more administrative hurdles to get over, and, funding is more limited and what have you. So it's a different, people who choose to stick around are aware of that. Therefore, they're not motivated by, I'm going to get rich tomorrow and just sell out and go chill out for a while.
Or the rock star factor, right?
Yeah, and so I've come across that a lot in the US and less in Europe. But it could also just be a cultural thing. They're not going to come here and be like, yeah, I'm going to make millions and, go sit on a boat for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're coming in contact with. Maybe it's part of the reason we're here, because there's so much hype around this. We figured we should talk about it too. But yeah, we talk to so many people here. Even the VC guys are like, it's a 7 to 10 year horizon.
Right.
It's not like you get quick flips and you got lots of failures.
Sure, and like Andrew was on last week, 4 years, and they're launching a brand new kind of part of their business, so it just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it's hard. We always ask some hard questions. It's Silicon Real. We try to get real. So I'm going to hit you with one. You addressed it a little bit before, but obviously France. You don't think entrepreneurism. You think old school socialism. We're not promoting this startup mentality. Courtney Boyd Myers said that when she was in New York, kind of like in 07, 08, she'd say I was in tech startup, and people were like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Now it's changed. When you tell people what you do in Paris, do they not know what the hell you're talking about? And also my question is, will France ever get there? you know?
I love the judgment there.
That's like
Is that judgment?
a leading question.
Really?
All right. So
I'm getting good at this journalism
exactly.
stuff.
So I can bring in maybe like a bit of a funny story. I went to a school in France, Sciences Po, and I was studying economic development. So I was completely off the startup mark by going to this school and studying this. And at the time, I fell into TechCrunch kind of by mistake or by accident. And people in my class like could not understand for the life of me like what I was writing about, why I was spending my time doing this, and like what kind of difference it would make in the world. And so people were just like, no, you got to go work for like the World Bank or like some, you know, the European Central Bank, or those are credible jobs. Writing for TechCrunch, that's like a joke. And you tell people like I'm a blogger and they just wouldn't take you seriously. And I feel like in the last few years, the tech community has grown substantially. Like the word startup, people know it. People understand now what it means.
Is that a French word? Is there a French equivalent?
Startup.
Oh, really? I thought the French hated the anglicized terms.
No, not the. But that's the funny thing about the startup community is that they definitely idealize the U.S. and so they will definitely use all the words that they can.
Okay.
But now people get it, and actually the French government, I think, especially with some of their initiatives like the one that we talked about earlier, equivalent to Tech City, it's a thing on people's radar. And the one thing that I've been a little bit disappointed, and I hope we get those equivalents, things like Dragon's Den and what have you, it just helps the general public understand what entrepreneurship is about a little bit in kind of like a comedy, whatever type way.
Yeah.
And in France, those types of things, it's business is kind of looked down upon a little bit more. So it will maybe take a little bit longer to get that.
Is making money looked down upon?
Yeah, as well.
So that gets to my other question. And is it always going to be kept from succeeding in that way?
You know, I think it's changing, and I have to say I give a lot of credit to Xavier Niel. He's he is the founder of a company called Free Telecom company, and he, I think, is the 10th richest man in France that is putting his money into essentially rebuilding the ecosystem. He's the money behind Kima Ventures, which is doing over 100 angel investments per year. He's just built a new school called 42, which they're going to essentially educate, I think it's 1,000 students over 3 years to make them into developers. And he's releasing a huge startup space that he's announced called 1,000 Startups. I guess 1,000 or 100 is his thing, where he's going to house essentially the entire ecosystem in Paris. So I think looking at what people do with their money when they get there and having examples like him will hopefully be encouraging to people. Nobody at this stage is going, oh, he's got too much money and he's just sitting on it and doing nothing. They're going, no, look, he's building, he's going to build France with it.
Well, it's encouraging. I mean, it's a big country. It's, G7. Sure. It has to have this technology progress. It's got to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Colin. Hit her with the question.
Do you find the tech startups in France are too France focused? And if I'm completely wrong, I think that's a bias that maybe I have, that maybe they focus on the French language and doing it for the France market, and then that makes it difficult potentially to scale. Is that just
I
false?
think it's a tricky question because in a sense, the French market is big enough that you have to pay attention to it, and it is still very French speaking. If you're going to launch your project, I don't know what your product is, but a lot of products, if you put them in English from the get-go, you're not addressing a lot of the population.
Right.
I feel like that's almost a handicap. So they have to, in a certain sense, look inwards. But I do also feel like a lot of companies, when they start, they're not looking at whether their problem, the problem that they're solving is actually that international or what it looks like in other countries. So I do think in some respects they can be too inward focused. And a lot of the time I think also I see a lot of people building copycats and things like that, which I'm actually not against. I've been kind of a supporter of it because I don't think a copycat is essentially not innovating anything. I think you do really have to adapt a lot to the local market. But I think I think that they do, as a result, they look inwards a lot more than looking outwards.
One thing I was just curious, why did you go to Paris? I mean, were you just looking for like a huge adventurous project? Because, you went to school in LA. I don't think you have French background.
No.
Because I just think people assume that she was French and then went to LA and came back. But why? Was it a challenge or why go there?
It was a huge challenge. My parents come from Iran, and Iran before the revolution was very Francophile. So I think I grew up with kind of like France is a nice place and interesting, and I was always interested in it. But one thing, I kind of fell into tech actually as a result of my interest in France. So I studied French literature, and then I worked for a French government agency in the Valley, and that's how I was like, actually, I love entrepreneurs. Went to the school in France that I was telling you about earlier, and I realized that building the ecosystem in France it kind of happened by accident, happened to be France that I picked as the country, but building the ecosystem is something that I have become really passionate about. So France, I have to say, I can't really explain it much more than that.
How did you fall into TechCrunch?
TechCrunch, that was my silly blog that I thought nobody would ever read, Tech Baguette, which I essentially just started writing because when I got to France, I was like, actually, there's a lot of really cool stuff happening here, and the French people all bash it, so I'm going to write about it, and I'm going to write about it in English, and hopefully somebody somewhere will care. And
You didn't write in French about it?
No, of course not.
Could you?
I ended up having to do TechCrunch in French, so I can write it in French. But I thought that defeats the purpose. Like, the point was to write the cool stuff happening in English. And Mike Butcher contacted me a few weeks later and was like, you should be doing this for us. So.
Wow. And then you made the big leap from journalism to what is your role now? What do you do?
It's essentially marketing.
Okay.
It's marketing to startups.
That's a big jump though, right?
It is a big jump. I didn't see myself being a journalist forever. I think you can always write on the side of whatever you're doing. And I loved TechCrunch, but I actually thought, I flipped to the other side. I left journalism prior to Microsoft. I worked for 2 startups in London. And I got to a point where with working for both of those startups, I loved the experience, but I actually missed having an ecosystem role. That's what I really liked about TechCrunch, was meeting consistently creative and passionate people, and I think I've kind of found that again at my current role.
Okay. There's that famous book, The Tale of Two Cities, and it's London and Paris. And we have a unique, chance here since you're in Paris. But what is the relationship between the two tech communities? You're here today. Am I asking you all the hard questions? That's good. But you're here today. You took the Eurostar over for the day. What does Paris look up to London? Does it look down? Do they communicate with each other? How does it work? I just don't know.
I see it. It's really funny. It's different from different ends. So I feel London is somewhat more agnostic to Paris. Like, it's a nice place, and we go there on holiday, and our economy is better, and there's kind of like not like a snobby attitude, but there's a little bit of this Paris, and they're doing their own thing, and we're doing our thing.
Okay.
Paris, I think, wants to emulate London, and this is something I have to say I don't really support, especially initiatives like Tech City and things like that. I think London has set a terrific example, but I think Paris needs to address its own concerns and not look at, what are the concerns London's addressing? How did they do it? We should do the same thing here. And I think I have to give Berlin credit for doing some really amazing things there. I discovered recently the project that they're doing with the factory, where essentially they're bringing the entire Berlin startup community and putting it in one location with this terrific center that they're building. And I thought that's really interesting because what they've decided to do is they looked at Berlin, they said, it's too big. People don't understand where everything is and they can't make sense of it. We're going to put it in one location and make it make sense for people. And that's very different to, kind of how London approached Tech City. And Paris is just looking at Tech City and going, we need to do that too, which I think in its own way is a little bit silly.
So Paris isn't creating kind of one central area?
It is creating one central area, but it's kind of doing it because it saw London do it.
Right.
It saw Silicon Valley, everything's kind of in the same location, and went, we should do that too.
Right.
Instead of looking at Paris and being like, maybe it would have been a better idea because funding is so limited to have, address that first. Sure. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But they essentially looked outwards and said, okay, we need to do that too.
Right. This worked there. Let's do it.
Yeah.
What gives you inspiration as far as the companies you see in Paris? If you have to pick one or two sectors, what do you see where you're like, wow, I think we have a winner here, or we have a winner here?
I think Paris has always been really strong in e-commerce. Part of that comes from investors being less risk averse, and they like to invest in something that they see already generating revenue from the get-go. But the other thing that I have to say, which I've been recently really surprised by, is I think it maybe comes from French like style and sophistication in a sense, but like the gadgets that I'm seeing. And I think there was one project that was recently done on Kickstarter that I kind of fell in love with called iSketchnote. And it's just like this really gorgeous, like you can essentially write on paper and you put it on top of this device and it goes directly to your computer. And they just, they blew away their targets on Kickstarter. And I just thought, building cool and beautiful devices like that, I think that is something that France could definitely be very strong in.
Design and fashion, right? Yeah.
Yeah, fashion as well.
Yeah,
huge.
Sure. And what about luxury? Like, because I think of Paris, I'm throwing all the stereotypes.
Yeah, no, it's true. Actually, those are ones that do very well. The
Right.
ones that I hate, it's and they've done very well as well, which goes in the cliches, is dating as well.
Really?
So when I was at TechCrunch, I would get pitched a dating company like every single day, and there's still a lot. I think part of it comes from Meetic, which was the Match.com equivalent. I think Match actually ended up buying them. But the luxury one of the biggest companies there, Vent Privé, had an offer from, I think, Amazon a few years ago for $2 billion,
Wow.
which it turned down. But it's huge.
Good decision.
Those are, and they're still going very strong.
Wow.
Are there any other classic French industries that you think could grab tech and really win, whether it comes to more stereotypes like wine and cheese?
Wine is doing well, food is doing well. Yeah, they're all doing it as well.
Yeah,
There's for
okay.
example, those boxes that you get in the mail, the subscription based. I've seen a lot doing it with wine. I've seen people building machines that essentially let you do tasting at home and things like that. So you all have all kinds of interesting startups in kind of the cliche spaces. I think food was one that I was hoping would do better. I think there was a platform a while ago called the Regioneo, and they were essentially bringing local produce. It was a local produce platform where you could buy from a little cheese, a guy making cheese in some farm somewhere, and he would put it online. You could buy it, and it didn't do very well. And I think it was for logistical purposes because these guys just don't have the, infrastructure and the habits of doing, having to go to the post office and ship and what have you afterwards.
What about the luxury brands? I mean, I know, LVMH was early on with their e-luxury website. This is late 90s or early 2000s. But a lot of the brands were very hesitant to get online. They were really trying to preserve their brands, preserve their shops in Paris and make it still an exclusive experience. Are you seeing more of those open up? Or being more open-minded?
Yeah, I have to say I haven't followed too much what these big brands have been doing, but I know that a lot of the startups that have been addressing, for example, being able to track a customer inside the store or being able to help them identify a specific product inside the store using different technologies. I have seen startups actually being able to go into some of these stores and they will use their products. So I think it has taken a little bit longer. I think some of these brands were very hesitant, and it's normal because luxury and tech, there is a bit of a distance, but I think it's starting to change now.
Luxury tech. What do you think of the Burberry CEO going to Apple?
I think
that
that's
note?
huge.
It's crazy.
I think
Yeah.
that's
That's
huge.
big. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really smart move.
Yeah, it's interesting.
What was the position? It was a newly created position, right?
I'm not sure the exact position she went to.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they obviously like what Burberry's doing with their stores and their brands.
Yeah.
So many of these luxury brands now, they're creating these almost concept stores where it's a place to engage with your customer and educate your customer. And sure, sales is a part of it, but there's so many other avenues to purchase from. So
Yeah.
it's really,
In London, you see the classic flagship store on Old Bond Street, that I can't believe they make any profits, but it doesn't matter. Right? It's just a marketing vehicle.
Yeah.
Let's talk Microsoft. What's it like to work for that company? I'm not putting you on the spot.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I mean, it's such a big company. It's an American company. You're in France. It must. What's it like?
I have to say that's what I like about it. I like that it's really international. My team, you would have no idea. I got there. I met the first Belarusian person. I don't even know if you can call it as a Belarus person. She's amazing. I used to have a Turkish boss. I just think that it's so international, and I don't know if you see that inside of every single company that you walk into in France.
You don't.
No, that was my way of saying it.
Okay,
And,
cool. I said it. I'm in trouble.
and but what I actually like about Microsoft, and I actually think people don't have this image about it, and Bindi and I actually discussed this earlier this morning at an event we were at, but there is a kind of entrepreneurial culture inside the company where, for example, with this project that we built, this accelerator in Paris, it was very clear. It was we want to build this go do it. And you just build it. And they kind of give you the freedom to figure out what you're doing. And I think that's also something that's very rare within a big company. So far, my experience, I mean, it is a big company, and there have been things that I'm learning and I'm adapting to. Just the sheer size of the place is one. But I do love the entrepreneurial kind of spirit and the flexibility that they give to their employees.
And that's because it's an American company, you think, or because it was originally a startup?
I've heard it's also our division. I think
Okay.
our division's also a very kind of startup-like division. But I do think it also has kept some of its American roots. And I like also, we do a lot of our communications within the company in English, and I think in France that's huge. You don't see that everywhere, so I like that a lot.
And that's Bindi Karia from Silicon Valley Bank, which was episode 5 or 6 or something like that.
Earlier on,
Definitely check that out. Roxanne said she's the Bindi of Paris. She said.
That's helping people understand my role.
The former, because
Strong
Bindi used
words.
to.
Those are strong words. I hope I can fill her shoes.
Bindi's a legend in London.
Big shoes, and she can jump.
Yeah, she jumped
I don't know
right
if I
here.
can jump besides Bindi.
Cool.
What, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a tough question, I guess. If sort of some VC said, listen, I want you to start a business for me. Here's a couple £1 million. Where do you choose to start it? So you're from the Valley or San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
You work in Paris, but you've also spent a lot of time in London.
You're putting me on the spot, but you're not giving me all the details. So
Okay.
I really have to know what
industry. It's that specific. So it's not like, so if it's fashion, maybe you want to be Paris. If it's finance, maybe you want to be London. It's that specific, you think?
It's that specific. I think
Okay.
a lot of it also comes down to who do I need to hire
Sure.
from day one. How are we going to go international?
Yeah.
Because a lot of French companies, it's funny, but they actually skip London and they just go straight to the US.
Sure.
And if that's more advantageous than coming to London and then having to go, well, where do I go next? I mean, I can't pick. And I do think people have these generalizations that they love to stick with. London is easier or whatever. I really don't believe that.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay. I'm new to this space. It's episode 17. I didn't even know who Michael Acton Smith was when we first started. I still don't know who he is. But where's Microsoft in London? I don't know.
We have an office in Victoria.
Okay.
Huge, very lovely place. And then we also have an office in Reading, which is a trek.
Okay.
Yeah.
But where are they in the startup community? They don't have an equivalent of what you're doing in Paris,
We
do.
do.
They?
We
Okay.
do. We've actually just announced it's going to change shape, I think, beginning of 2014, but they're currently doing what we're doing out of another space. I think it's Central Co-working that they picked in London. Okay. We actually used to have a terrific space, and I'm kind of sad that they shut it down, but it was in order to be able to concentrate on the Ventures Accelerator, called Modern Jago, and it was near the Google space, near Google campus, but it was more dedicated to kind of arts and sciences, and it was gorgeous, and I think people just didn't know about it in the startup community, but we had a really cool space for about a year. And so now we're opening an accelerator space, and it will probably go into its own location beginning of 2014.
Okay. So they want to be here. They need to be here.
They are here.
Okay, good. I just got noticed. I wanted to get your opinion. We asked this for people that come in here, and you're in a unique place to give us an answer. What's the biggest mistake that you see startups making in general, and then also in France?
Biggest mistakes I see startups making. Well, I host a conference on failure, so I should know this.
Really?
But yeah,
Expert in failure.
you have failure questions, ask me. No, I think a lot that there's a lot of cliche like platform dependency or, expanding the team too quickly, things like that. I think biggest problems that I've heard of, or consistent problems, actually is co-founder issues, where people are not clear on who's doing what, or there's issues with equity, or there's issues with ego, or just little things like that. So I've heard a lot of people just have falling out, and it's funny because those are the ones that we can't really address at FailCon because they're very personal stories. But that is
FailCon, that's what it's called?
That's what it's called. It's actually from the
Cool.
Valley, so we brought
Okay.
it out from San Francisco.
Very cool.
Wow.
We'll come to the UK soon.
Yeah, that's
But,
great. That's a great idea.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think hiring, and probably also people think raising a lot of money is like the end all. Once you have a lot of money, you're good to go. But everybody says, actually, I raised too much money too soon, or I didn't use it wisely, or it made me careless with this and that. So I think finance is actually another one probably to pay attention to.
Was it Hussein Kanji that said, like, show me you know how to hire He said something like that. Like, it's great if you
Yeah.
have a product, but show me that you can hire. Yeah, that's what he said. Because if you
The
can,
value, yeah.
if you can attract the 2 or 3 guys, especially if you can get them away from other companies,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
they want to invest in.
Yeah.
And hire people that are better than you.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
will stick
so-
around.
Yeah.
Building a good team. How is the human resources in France? Is there, everyone here is looking for a CTO.
Yeah, everyone in
It-
France is looking. Everyone everywhere is looking
Sure.
for a CTO, aren't they? I think it's cheaper in France.
Okay.
There are actually pockets of really good technical talent. France has some really amazing engineering schools. I think actually, we were talking about this morning as well, is that you have these communities of technical people, and for some reason they just don't seem to connect with the business people. So trying to figure out how to make that happen and facilitate that is a question I think every ecosystem needs to ask itself. But otherwise, I think actually I haven't noticed anything necessarily missing from France's ecosystem.
And is immigration, what's immigration like in France?
Immigration
Is
is
it more
my
difficult?
favorite topic in
Okay,
every country
there
I've
we
lived
go.
in.
Is that
No,
because it's been tough for you to
It's
immigrate?
been tough for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? What's your citizenship?
My is U.S.
So getting over
Yeah.
here was hard.
Here was actually easy. I got the post-work study, whatever it was called, visa, which doesn't exist anymore now in the UK. No, actually, there is an equivalent of the entrepreneur visa in France, which is poorly named the carte compétence et talent, which I think nobody would ever know that is addressing
Especially
entrepreneurs.
if you're not from France.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got
And
that.
it's actually, I know a few people that have it. So the funny thing with the entrepreneur visa, maybe you guys know people that have it in the UK. I haven't met somebody that's got it, even though everyone says it's amazing.
Yeah.
You have it?
No, I know
Okay.
Jennifer Arcuri, who runs Initech.
Okay.
I don't know, she got the entrepreneurship visa, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's something that they're looking to do. And whenever the French government is looking to do something, it takes a little bit of time. So hopefully they'll roll that out within a reasonable amount of time. But at the moment, there's something that exists. It just, people don't know about it and people don't know how to go get it. And the one that I liked in London was also the entrepreneur looking for investment visa. I don't know if that one still exists, the 6 months that you could come to the UK and seek investment and then decide if you want to stay or not. But from what I've followed from the visas in the UK, it doesn't look like it's that much better than the French situation.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm on an ancestral visa.
Okay.
So my grandfather was born here.
Okay.
But it's only 5 years, and then I got to figure out.
Yeah, I was on a work visa, and then I got citizenship. Otherwise, it would have been tough. Yeah, I know. Yeah. What kind of immigrants would you want in Paris? Are you trying to get the Yanks? Or are you trying to get people from India? Or what? Who can't
All
you get?
of them. I think actually, and some investors in France have confirmed this for me, French companies would be more attractive for American acquisitions if they had more Americans on their team. So bringing over, and I think France already has the disadvantage of being a French-speaking country, so you are more likely to get Americans coming to London. So if they could make the visas a lot easier, I mean, France is an attractive place to live, so it's not like people don't want to live there, it's just do people want to live and work there? So that's something I think that France needs to think about. But I would definitely say increasing English-speaking population would be huge. And maybe also increasing, you want to have Indians and Chinese people that can do all kinds of other things and maybe take companies even more international would be hugely beneficial as well.
Does your pro-English stance get you in a lot of trouble?
Pro-English stance meaning?
In France.
Oh, language-wise?
Yeah. Must.
Not anymore, and I can get away with it because I'm American and I speak decent French, so people don't mind. I made the effort to learn their language, so they don't hate me for it. I have gotten tons of people at conferences that come to me and they go, "We all speak French here. Why are we doing this in French?" And I go, "Hey, it's better for you. Why are we doing this in English?"
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're getting over that.
they're getting over it. Yeah,
They're getting
I'm forcing them to.
I had a quick question about, so is you see Paris, a lot of tech companies, we had Tommy D.
Tommy Davies from
Tommy
Nigeria.
From
yeah.
Nigeria. So I know Paris and France has, connections in Africa. Is there a lot of tech sort of taking place, sort of the technology part of building it in Paris for maybe the African market? Is that happening at all? Or?
I've seen very few companies, French companies, addressing African market, which it's surprising because you're right, there's a huge
African population
relationship
too.
between, especially North Africa
Yeah.
and France. There are a lot of North African entrepreneurs in the French startup community, and they tend to actually have tech teams in Tunisia or Morocco or what have you. So I think we're going to start to see more and more of that.
Sure.
But for the moment, I haven't seen a lot of it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to hit her with the advice question.
Cool.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Roxanne and give that young lady a bit of advice, what would you tell her?
Wow, 20-year-old. What was I doing then? God, I would maybe almost tell her not to have done a master's degree.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would tell her not to do a master's degree. The other thing is,
But the master's degree got you to France.
master's degree got me the visa. I wish I'd gone after the
okay.
visa. I mean, that's probably
that-
a bad way to look at it, but
Right.
that's essentially what it was. You know, I think I would have actually maybe liked to start things sooner. Maybe I waited too long to actually dive into tech. I was, dancing around, what do I want to do, a little bit too long. I went back to Silicon Valley from Southern California slightly after. So maybe I should have just, gone for it. I think the other thing I tell everybody now, coding is becoming really trendy. I still have no idea how to code. Should have gotten my hands dirty back then. Learned how to code.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're saying it's trendy, but it's trendy for a reason.
It's trendy for a reason. It's going to be the new foreign language, I think. Everybody's going to have to speak English and understand a minimum of code and programming in the
There's
future.
still time left. You're young.
I'm going to do it. Don't worry.
You said you were with Catherine Parsons from
Yeah,
Dakota
yeah.
this morning? You
Yeah.
gotta register.
And I've actually participated in one of her things.
Oh, did you?
It's intro. It's day one.
Okay.
I've got to go way farther than that.
Yeah. I want to do that actually.
Yeah.
We've heard that advice before from,
Yeah.
from a few people here.
Everyone, yeah.
Yeah. On that same note, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Take a risk. Do it. Yeah, I think, for example, when I was even something as silly as blogging, everyone was like, oh, don't blog. There's so many blogs. Nobody's ever going to read your blog. Like, don't do it. And don't name it Tech Baguette. That's ridiculous. And,
You don't forget it, though.
Yeah. And
No, I think it's a cool name. Do you have like a picture of you on a bike with a baguette?
I should get that done.
Branding.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone was like, oh, don't do that. And I asked a few people, and I think actually people should listen to their gut more. So yeah, just take the risk, just do it. If it's something you want to do and you're passionate about it, just go.
Okay, and finally, to the 20-year-old listening out there, male or female, that kind of want to get into the tech biz or want to grow up and be like Roxanne someday and be one of the 30 under
dear.
30 in tech, what advice do you give them?
I would tell them actually to be present as much as they can in the tech community. Go to events, blog, talk to people. Don't be afraid of asking questions. I don't know how many events I used to go to where I would just sit there and listen and actually you go and talk to people. That is the best thing that you can do. Make those connections. People underestimate the value of knowing other great people. And I think you could meet your potential co-founder. You could meet, the next person who's going to found an amazing company and you're going to be number 2. I have no idea. But, I just think people should go out there and get involved in whatever it is that they want to do. And that's the advice that I would give them.
Good advice.
Good
Good
advice.
advice.
Great advice.
You mentioned this whole rock star factor earlier, and
dear.
you were part of like the tech journalistic community, which gets a lot of garbage from people on here that say we had Max Niederhofer who was saying these guys blow take these companies to new levels. They're like, look at this exit, and everyone thinks it's like you said, it's cool to be a startup person, maybe in America or even here. What do we do? How do we address this issue?
What do you mean, like in the TechCrunch life?
No, just in general, like you said, a lot of people seem to be doing a startup for the wrong reasons and don't understand that there's hard work and there's failure, and it's almost just as hard as starting up a bakery as opposed to an online bakery. Oh, everything's going to be easy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a problem, to be honest. I think you need that. I think people, whatever their motivation, having more startups, is that hurting anybody? You're going to have more failures. It's going to happen. Hopefully Max and other investors can recognize who they should be investing in, but I think they're doing that. So I actually think even if you have the entrepreneurs doing it for the wrong reasons, you need them. And you have them everywhere. You're going to have them in the Valley. You're going to have them in Israel. You're going to have them in Paris. So I don't think you need to cut out the crap necessarily all the time.
All right, fair enough. Just finally, you talked about failure, and it's something that's been talked about here in England. And England has like a tendency, if you look at the media and stuff, to like drag people down and be like, oh, they failed, now they're rubbish. And some of the entrepreneurs have sat here have said they really like the American culture where it's more of a badge of honor. What is failure like in France?
Oh my God. So take England and just make it as bad as you can.
Wow.
Really?
I make the comparison. I actually use my school experience because I went to school in the US, in France, and in the UK. And in France, you'll write something wrong on a piece of paper, and you'll get comments that just like when you see it, it's in red and it's like circled and there's like a no with like 3 exclamation points, and you just look at it and you're like, what did the poor guy think when he saw my answer? In the US, we're like, oh, good job, like nice try, or okay, or no, it's not correct, and they write the correct answer for you so you can know it. And in the UK, I definitely have written a paper where I did minimum amount of work, and I got a comment back that was very kind of sarcastic and like, oh, Roxanne, I noticed you didn't do very much work for this paper. And I think that shows you very well kind of the 3 attitudes to failure, essentially. And in France, it's a huge stigma. It's, you cannot go out there and openly talk about your failures. And we did the FailCon conference. We did it first in French, and we had people come on stage, and they were all, on board with, yes, we need to talk about failure. This is a great initiative. And then you go, well, can you share a personal failure story? And they just freeze. And they're like, well, I've never failed. I was, top of my class, and I'm an investor, and I've never had a failed investment. And you're just like, who are you? Like, of course you got a failure. And we redid the conference a couple months later in English with foreigners. I brought people over from Canada, from Portugal, and we talked about failure stories. And that's when you really got people being like, yeah, I shouldn't have put all my eggs in one basket when I launched my product only on Facebook, or I shouldn't have done this. And that was something new, but there still is a huge stigma around failure in France.
What's your failure story?
My failure, I probably have loads, actually. I actually think some of my failure stories have been, I've got a lot of different initiatives, so I haven't founded a startup, but I do Girls in Tech. I've done Girls in Tech in France and in the UK. I've done a lot of different blogging things where the team organization has, for the most part, worked. But I think probably the biggest failure stories that I can think of are team-related, co-founder-related. And I started a blog with someone in France, Rude Baguette, which was both of us coming on board. Liam Booger is now running it. And we both came on board kind of, I felt, with an equal understanding of what was going to be involved. And we didn't have the same vision, and we should have sat down and hashed that out. And as a result, we're no longer working together. And I feel badly about that because it was a project that I think I believed in. So that's my failure story. I think it's very, very, very team-related so far. But maybe I'll make a terrible investment in the future, God knows.
It's a good failure story. How do you prevent that whole co-founder? You were talking about it earlier, like some of the biggest mistakes you make. And how do you vet a co-founder? I mean, should you put something in paper, like you said, like a mission statement?
I think, I've heard some different stories from different startups. I have a good friend, Cedric Georgie in France, that he started a company called Cookening with 2 guys that he didn't know prior. And he said that they actually did a startup weekend for a totally different project just to see if they could work together and build something in a weekend and how they manage under pressure. And he said that experience kind of told us a lot about each other, but they were all on board that we need to test each other before making that step. I think I've had there's other examples of, for example, equity. Another friend of mine who's the founder of All My Apps said that when he got together with his co-founder, he gave the co-founder more equity because it was not his idea, but he gave the co-founder more equity than what he asked for, knowing that if he came on board already satisfied and already thinking that, he was getting more than he was already thinking he was worth, he was going to work harder. So I think people that get people and they can put themselves through different tests like that, that can make a huge difference. And I think one of the things that I potentially failed to do in my situation was really sit down and hash out what is our vision, what are our different roles, kind of what's expected from each person. And I think those are things that can make or break a company or a project.
That's good advice. We haven't heard that one before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, the co-founder stuff is cool. And you even see it, the Twitter co-founders had in early days, and a lot of people think or saying BlackBerry, a lot of its failures is co-founder issues too. So yeah, it's huge. For me, I've done a few companies. It's always like just be as open and honest as possible.
Yeah.
Never sort of keep things, and if you have a problem, just hash it out. It's the only way to get through it. Yeah.
Last question. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, do you think you'll be operating in a startup? I mean, we ask people a lot that are involved in incubators if they want to get in and get their hands
Totally.
dirty. Really?
Totally. I tell everybody, I'm so embarrassed now to say this, like 5 years, everyone goes, what do you want to do in the future? I'm like, I want to start a startup. I don't have yet that idea, and people tell me it's not the idea that counts, but you need to wake up every morning wanting to care about that product or whatever it is that problem you're solving. And I haven't found that yet if it's not the entrepreneurial community. So hopefully, I mean, I do really love also working in a really small team, and I like building stuff. So definitely, I'll be part of a startup somehow.
So you're actively looking for ideas and co-founders.
I'm always in the back of my head looking for
things happening.
Yeah, amazing people.
Do
great
people
ideas.
Approach you
All the time?
Yeah. So you're just kind of waiting for that right one.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Would
and
you like to give your notice to Microsoft on the air?
Definitely no. Guys, keep me. No, I love what I'm doing at Microsoft. I think I'm really fortunate in some of the other projects that I work with. For example, the Girls in Tech team that we have in Paris, the co-founder, Munya, she's a really good friend. And if she used to have a startup in Morocco, if she ever decides she wants to start something again, I can see myself working with her. I'm just surrounded by people that I'm really inspired by. So that's maybe a benefit and a drawback.
Again, it's always about the people. It always comes back. It's like a regular thing. What did I miss, Colin? Anything?
No, I think it's good.
It was an action-packed
it was.
episode.
Yeah,
that was good. A lot of hard questions, a lot of good answers.
Yeah.
News-wise, this is episode 17. If you're listening to us on iTunes, you can see all of our beautiful faces on YouTube channel Silicon Reel.
Check it out.
We're on Twitter at Silicon Reel. Always looking for guest suggestions, ideas, people that want to help out with biz dev.
Yeah, still looking for some help. So if any, some young guys in the ecosystem or girls are interested in getting involved with what we're doing, again, as our catalog grows, it's more and more work to try to keep the promotion up and get new guests and all that sort of stuff. So reach out.
Give us a shout. Roxanne, how do people get a hold of you?
Twitter is my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or email. My email is very public.
So we got you on Twitter. Someone suggested you on Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay.
That happened.
And what is it? At Roxanne Varza?
At Roxanne Varza, one word. Okay. And my email, rvarza at either microsoft.com or gmail.com.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here. That was a lot of fun. Best of luck in Paris. I can't wait to see the Microsoft, incubator here in this neighborhood, maybe? Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is actually, yeah. And it will hopefully stay there.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Until then, it's about the people. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, take care. What if Nike calls you up and we're like, we want it. We want Tribe Sports. Here's 100 million pounds. Here's the check. What do you guys do? Because there has to be a price where, for your investors, you exit, right?
Who knows? I think we need to.
Question
It is a hard question.
Who's turning down 100 million? I don't know too many people, but
it would be tricky. It would be tricky. You'd have to really, it'd have to be the right fit. You'd have to sell it.
Sure, yeah.